Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to Pam and the Purple Couch podcast. This week on the Purple Couch, we're going to talk about masking. What exactly is masking, and how many different forms can it come into your home? On the couch, we're actually going to bring a mask to the couch. We'll see you this week on the Purple Couch podcast. Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to Pam and Loki on the Purple Couch.
It's still just us, I suppose.
Yes, just for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about our masking. That was the masking is the summary of today's show.
Yeah.
So we were really going to go into you and your alternate persona that you've got and how other autistic kids also have these personas. And I don't even just want to say kids, because young adults now, your entire group that you've got all have kind of alter personas online versus in real.
I would say that they're not really alter personas, more so just the way we want to represent ourselves in our own little community, I suppose.
Okay.
And this could be like towards like various other things, like trying to think of a way to say this, like people just get commissions from artists to draw their character, and that character is what they see in themselves.
Oh, very nice. So
their avatar. Basically, yes.
Okay, so like even in our spiritual community, when we talk about this body being an avatar for our soul, you're now coming up and doubling down by creating an avatar.
Yeah, other people
in your social media world.
Yeah, but it's usually called personas because I'm not one to actually talk about the logistics of internet lingo or such like that, but I assume sona is a word for like persona, but it's not an alternate persona. It's more so a character, again, that's meant to represent you. And sometimes people have just different versions of that same thing, but it still represents them in some way.
Okay, so I want to go back a couple years. I want to go back during COVID.
Yes.
Okay, so nationwide, worldwide, everyone knows that people were wearing masks.
Yeah.
You know, some places it was mandatory, it was state mandatory. You know, the police are, you need to put a mask on, you can't come out of your house. We were blessed to be in the Wild West here in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a little less limitations than other people across the world. So the reason I bring COVID up is because COVID gave you an excuse to bring your persona.
Well, it wasn't even before that. It was like just
you wore your, when we went out for our mini vacation, you took your mask.
Yeah, this mask that was used.
Your plague mask.
Yeah, this mask that was used in Halloween of 2016, if I remember the correct date. Because it was a character with a green plague mask, and we custom made this one by using this and just putting white and green glow in the dark spray paint over it. And I sort of made this whole like persona thing whenever I just want to do a video call without actually showing my face, because I was still kind of sensitive about it. So all I literally did was just open it up, and then I just decided to wear this. And to be honest, it doesn't really fit me anymore. The thing that held it like through the like a comforting thing, as in a literal comforting thing.
Yeah, like the little foam pad.
Yeah, the foam pad is very much gone at this point, and honestly, for around like since it's been like 8 years. Actually, no, it's not been 8 years.
Well, we're in 2025, and if it was 2016, it would have been 9 years ago. I know, microphone drop on that one.
Well, anyways,
but I want to go back to something that you said.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you started wearing the mask when you were doing your video calls with your friends.
Yes.
And you said something that I want to pick up on, because it made you feel more comfortable, because you still weren't comfortable in those video calls with your friends. Yeah. Now, these are still your online community of friends that you've had, these same people in your life 4 or 5 years, if we're going to go back to 2016.
Sometimes it changes, but yes, I understand what you mean by that.
So, but even in that area, in that realm, you are uncomfortable with face to face
Yes.
communication.
Yes, because
So,
it's still sort of a stranger danger sort of thing. So I want to just do that as a gag, a goof sometimes, and
okay.
not even like I wasn't even doing it all the time, but sort of that whole like green plague mask thing just sort of became like something I just liked doing. It was something that I did once, and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll do it again, just for the sake
So,
of it.
you took that to another level though, because even when we went on vacation,
I
you would wear your plague mask instead of a regular mask during COVID
No, I
time.
still wore a regular mask.
Yes, but when we went out in public, if you could get away with it, you would wear your
Yeah,
mask.
because it's funny.
Okay. Now, what about all of the walks to the avenues with your mask on?
Again, that still seems pretty funny because you just see a guy wearing a fucking plague mask outside. Just generally, I'm like, "Ew, what the hell is that guy doing?" And I'm just saying, like, I'm just doing it for funnies. Like,
Okay.
if somebody could get like a little bit of a smile out of me having a plague mask on in the middle of the day, that means it's a little bit worth it. I'd say, because as much as I'm getting enjoyment out of it myself, other people may seem weird, but I don't want to say I'm living my own life or something like that because that sounds really fucking
But it's
corny.
so important because you're not the only one. I have seen other high functioning older young adults that are on the social media platforms and they like to dress up in character too.
Yeah,
I know we had the whole episode about dressing up,
yeah.
whether you're into cosplay as an adult or young adult or even the comic cons and things along those lines.
Hell, even furries do that
Yes.
because that's like their persona. That's how they
Okay.
see themselves, and they dress up as themselves. That's just
So I want to go a little deeper though, because we've talked about, and the reason I'm bringing this to the podcast, like we've talked about it beforehand, was because there's so many parents that don't have the communication like you and I do.
mm-hmm.
And their young adult goes upstairs, put the headphones on, and the parents don't see them for 4 to 5 hours. They don't engage, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You and I've had that open communication. So, can you help explain to some of our families that are watching, just like what you said, is that though other people may look at you and be like, well, why do you have that costume on? Why do you have that mask on? Why? It really doesn't matter as long as you are
Or having
enjoying it
fun, yeah.
and you're trying to bring joy to somebody else. That's what I heard you say. And
Yeah.
that as a mom just makes me feel wonderful because you're like, well, and if somebody else sees me in downtown and I have a
Yeah,
plague
it's a
mask
mix
on,
between having fun, and it's just sort of like a comfort thing if you like having that represent yourself. I'd say.
now I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
Can you be as goofy and as funny without the mask?
I'd say I'd still be able to do it with my voice, even like that's like sort of what I do most of the dang time without doing video calls still on Discord. I still do the same thing with my voice
I
because I'm
know.
still representing myself with my soda because my friends know me as that Sona because it's fun. But
Okay.
in a public space where I don't have any of that, I'd say it looks a little bit more strange to say the least, but I know when it's times to just sort of fit in with the norm. And
Okay. And that right there, that is what this entire show is about. So many times our population, and I say this because we look at children that are neurodivergent, we look at children that have ADHD, ASD, ODD, that whole alphabet soup we talk about.
yeah,
And we fixate on these guys have this alternate persona. These guys aren't being themselves, but it's not just your demographic. I think this is worldwide, human wide. So many times, and I think social media has a lot to do with it, is everyone can hide
yeah,
behind their phone, their computer, their conversations.
and be themselves.
But are they being themselves or are they being what they think people want them to be?
Well, that's more so on a more philosophical question that makes it seem like hold on, rephrasing my words here. It's that is a question that's more so intertwined with the person rather than someone asking the question in the first place, because they have to be honest with themselves to make that decision in the first place if they are actually, you know,
Hiding.
hiding.
So,
Yes.
because we're talking about masking, people that are on the spectrum mask when they need to stim.
Yes.
They feel socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with, just like you said, with really being
It's
yourself.
it's hard. It's hard, socially interacting. Yeah, I mean, I'll say that, and it's hard doing that in real life. It's amped up to 10 when it's in real life, actually.
So, do you think that when you put the mask on, it gives you a sense of protection where you can really be goofy and
A little bit, yeah.
okay.
But I don't think that applies to everybody.
Okay. No, I'm not asking. I just want to know from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have got a collection of masks. Do you want to show our viewers your collection here?
Yeah, well, I already showed this one from Halloween
All right, well, I'll set them over
2016.
here if you like. So, this was your original plague mask, and you
Yeah,
brought this one in to see this is
as
what it originally looked like, and then this is what you created for cosplay, correct?
yeah,
And then the cosplay turned into actually building your persona,
yeah,
correct?
and
Okay.
then after like I'd say like around like 2021, I
Okay.
just decided, hey, I'm just gonna collect a few more just for the sake of it, which came this mask,
Okay.
which I still am personally a big fan of, but it's still very hard to like put on without it feeling uncomfortable because there's no comforting over here
Okay.
or no foam pad.
All right. Well,
But
show the camera so they
yeah,
can see this amazing
I
mask.
did. I did. Look.
So, now would you like to tell them why we're showing them these masks? Because what are you about to do? What are we going to expand out with these wonderful masks?
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I'll get into that. Um Finally, here's the last mask. This was sort of, I think this was actually the same time I bought that mask,
Okay.
the 2016 mask, because I thought the design looked cool, but at the same time it felt like a little very so much was going on, and it looked very small in terms of like size as opposed to the 2016 mask.
Gotcha. Okay. So let
Um
me set this one over here. So these are all kind of in that same where you can still be you, and it's literally just covering up a
Yeah,
partial of you.
again, I would like to say it's not like an alternate persona. I'm still myself. I'm not on some alternate personality type thing. Sorry for that long pause, by the
No,
way.
that's okay because my question then to you as we wrap up this segment is can you be the same person then with or without this mask?
I'd say I could still be the same person. I could still have the same tastes. I could still have the same ideas. I could still have the same opinions.
So when you're starting this new video clip talking to other young adult neurodivergent kids like yourself,
Yeah, my
okay?
own off-brand social media account where I will just post literally anything because I'll get into this. Mom has been forcing me to make a social media account just so I can
Well,
promote.
am I forcing you?
Well, it's more so not forcing me, but socially nudging me to say, hey, you should advertise for the Purple Couch podcast and be relatable. And it's very hard to be relatable in the first place because I feel forced to make content that feels relatable. Like, I have to
Yes.
think about, oh, yeah, if I say something, will this make good content? I don't want to think like that. I never want to think like, oh, yeah, whatever I say could be used for content to make people feel relatable. I don't never want to do that. I just want to say, okay, if I want to record something, if I want to like make something right now where it's probably going to be the most dog shit thing you're ever going to see, I will upload it and I will send it to the social media team, say, hey, can
Yes.
you do this? Can you do this and just send this over to like a social media account? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know how mom's going to regret having that decision in the first place.
Well, we got to tell them what we agreed to. So we wanted you liked how you were doing the podcast. You liked how you were getting the feedback.
Yes.
And so I told you to build more content.
Yes.
But you don't want any parameters or restrictions on the content that you build.
Yeah, not a timeline, not a date, not like a specific theme. because if I'm angry right now, I can't just say, "Oh yeah, hey guys, I'm angry. Like and comment and watch the Purple Couch podcast if you think this is relatable,"
So
because
what did we
nobody
do though?
thinks like that.
Right. So what did we do? What we came up with a solution for that, right? And the solution is you're branching off on your own and you're going to have your own social media content and you can post whatever you want.
Yeah, inconsistency to hell. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But what did we do in that? Did you see how we shaped that? So, audience, what we did was we took everything, took. Is that a word? Took?
It took.
Took, yeah.
Just took.
What we did was we took what Loki wanted to do, how Loki wanted to be out into social media. Because what is it? I don't want to do the Gen Xer thing, but what is that account? You want it, the Twitch? Is that what it's called? Where they watch people video when.
Well, there's YouTube, there's Twitch, there's.
Okay, so there's a plethora of different outlets.
Yeah.
And so you started coming onto the podcast because this is a long-term career goal that you've got. So why not give you the exposure?
Yeah.
And so now, because you don't want to worry about upsetting a demographic that watches
Yeah, and I don't want my
podcast.
audience just to be consisting of middle-aged parents that have autistic children and go, yes, little Johnny would really like how this 19 to 20-year-old boy says various curse words online. Yeah, no, nobody's going to be actually interested in that, and they'll ruin your image. So I want to do my own thing, my own content in a sense, still helped by the social media team here.
Yes.
Where I'd be able to upload anything, and that's it. I just want to upload anything and feel like I'm not forced to uphold a reputation by you.
I love it. I love it. And we're giving you a platform to do that.
Yeah.
So parents, that's the benefit. The benefit of this episode of Loki and I together is to understand that you can have a common goal, but you've got to make sure that you're not taking away the independence and individuality of your child. So come on back. We're going to look at the scientific way of processing what Loki and I just discussed. We'll be right back on the Purple Couch. Hi, friends and family. And like we said, we'd be right back on the Purple Couch. But we just changed our brown seat. Now it's Dr. Manny and Loki's not there. I'm like, Loki, where'd you go? So no, family, this is kind of how we're going to do season 4. This is very important because when I was reviewing all the past seasons, I started thinking about how can we get our parents to see how, as young adults, Loki and I communicate, because that's what the feedback's been on.
Yep.
How did you get Loki to open up to you? How do you have these conversations? You all talk about anything and everything. How did you get there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, from the clinical side of this, I think the best way to do that is for Loki and I to have our conversations, and then for you and I to discuss them as if we were sitting here doing a treatment plan with one of our kids.
Yeah.
We know Loki wants to do his persona or sona.
Yeah.
Because I wanted him to do more video of him just being him. So many times, like we've talked, when he puts the headphones on and he's in Discord world, I have eavesdropped. As a parent, we all do because we want to make sure our kids are okay.
Yep.
But the laughter, the jokes that come out of this kid, the relaxation, and the things that just fly. As a mom, I tell him, I'm like, Loki, you're so funny. I was like, why are you so afraid to go out and talk to people? But it's just like what we talked about and what he expressed here, is that either behind the avatar that they've made on their social media platform or behind a mask when dealing with video, they keep a block.
Yep.
You know, and it's so many times we see it in the ABA world, kids masking stimming, kids masking behaviors, waiting until we have parents that go, he's a terror when he comes home. It's like, well, yeah, but he's great in school. Why? Well, he's safe. He's comfortable. He can be himself when he comes home. He's bottled all that up all day long. So when he comes home, he knows you're going to love him. You're not going to judge him.
Right.
And he's going to let it go. But as a parent, just like how you heard me trying to probe him, was like, well, Loki, why can you? And he's like, oh, I can be that same person. Well, maybe not, maybe. But I'm using this because he is going to do clips. and he's going to be himself, and he's going to use potty language, and he doesn't want to bring the potty language to the couch, which I love. Even in the last episode that aired, he scolded you. You had a 10-year-old talk and use foul language. I'm like, who are you,
Yeah,
kid?
I laughed that off. That was funny.
But we see this all the time. And so if we're seeing it, I know our parents are seeing it.
Oh, sure. I mean, when it comes to masking, so what is it, right? So masking is just a change of behavior. And what we know about behavior is that there's a function, right? There's a function of that behavior. And so masking is kind of an interesting phenomenon because we're talking about in the context of a person with autism.
Yes.
But masking exists whether you have autism or not.
Everyone.
So anybody that's ever dressed up for Halloween and played the part,
yes,
you were masking. Anybody that's gone to some fancy event and wore the suit and tie or the dress that you don't wear on a normal basis.
Tux.
And
black tie.
Right. And then you go to that event and you change your demeanor, you change your behavior, you change the way you speak, you change how articulate you are compared to others. Or how about this one? It's my favorite one of masking. A person that goes to a sporting event and acts apeshit crazy, right? They don't act that way on a normal basis. But in a sporting event, that's a social norm, right?
Yes.
Go crazy, scream, yell at the umpire, yell at the referee, and it becomes part of that social norm. And that's really the most interesting part for me from a clinical side about masking is what is the function? So we've talked about in lots of episodes that there's 4 types of function, right? And I'm going to reiterate them, but I want to reiterate them in terms of like masking.
Well,
so you say,
even when you said about us going to like a gala or black tie, how about business casual, business attire?
Yeah.
You know, for decades, dress for success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When people dress for work, they act differently.
Absolutely.
So we've been living this without having a term to actually identify and address it.
And masking, there was ways to describe masking in different ways, like in the past, keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
That's a very famous phrase about keeping up with people that are rich to do whatever. Now, I guess in today's society, we say keeping up with the Kardashians, right? But also things like the Stepford Wives,
yes,
right? Anybody that's familiar with that concept, well, that's masking, especially if you weren't a true Stepford wife, right? The other one, and it's just an older saying, is like, when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? So when in Comic-Con, do as they
absolutely
do, right?
100%. I dress up for Comic-Con,
right.
So exactly, you're 100% right.
So it's an interesting. Now, I think there's a difference. So one of the things I think would be good to talk about is there is a difference between masking in context, like Halloween,
yes,
right? That's in context. It's a once a year thing, whatever, versus masking for everyday life.
yes,
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just understanding it. So in Loki's case, he built this repertoire, this persona, to have social conversations,
yes,
right? To get unstuck and unfiltered, right? And I think that's great. That's how he became who he is today. 2
good words there: unstuck and unfiltered.
Right. And that's what masking does. It helps you contact that social reinforcement, right? That social reinforcement that otherwise you couldn't contact because
absolutely,
it would be deemed as socially not normal.
Well, think about what we've talked about here on the couch. When I go home, you're blessed to have known me.
Yeah.
So we know each other personally.
Yeah.
I go home, I don't want to deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I get you're an extrovert and you do that. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
really? Yeah, you really don't know me that well because I really just want to go home.
Right.
I want to deal with the water. I want to deal with my garden. And yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm done for the day.
Yep.
But it's the same way with our kids too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I don't think that parents take time to recognize that in their children, even though it's going on daily for them. They're a different person at work. They're a different person when they come home. And I think our neurodivergent population see straight through that in many times. And like Loki was saying, I'm just going to be me. But being me may come with someone going, well, what's that crazy kid doing that for? Because he was a butterfly. And we see so many children that STEM. And even in our population that is very mixed with neurodivergent and neurotypical, when a child is over stimming or humming or vibrating in their own level, you still get the looks.
Oh, yeah.
Even with knowledge, you still get the looks.
Yep.
So I think that's where the mask for Loki is coming in, that physically he's like, I'm going to be who I am, but I don't want it to follow back to me.
Yeah, and I hopefully as a society as a whole, we'll evolve to a point where it's not a big deal. We allow it, we accept it. So I think back to a time where
You really think
This
that's
is-
going to happen?
well, I do. I just think it's going to take a long time. So
Don't
for
you
example,
remember? Hold on. I got to stop you on that one. Because my sister and I've had these conversations.
Okay.
And don't you remember? I'm going to meet you at the bus stop.
Mhm.
Oh, so you're going to run your mouth about me? You want to talk about my mom wearing polka dotted clothes? Oh, I'll see you at the corner bus stop and we're going to handle this. We didn't have social media growing up.
Right.
If you ran your mouth or talked smack, you had consequences because you had to see that person face to face.
Mhm.
We're in such a society now that anyone can say anything without consequence to them, but mental health statistics show that it's affecting our children.
Yeah, so I think back to a couple examples that come to my mind that I think we've come a long way from. So the days of the Poindexter,
Mhm.
you know, the kid in school that was deemed as a nerd, right? That would wear glasses a certain way, or would dress a certain way, or wear the bow ties, or was the Trekkie, right? So years ago, maybe the 40s, 50s, 60s, it was deemed, those were the kids that were having a mask, right? They were having to present themselves in a different way so they wouldn't get picked on or they wouldn't get
What was it? Steve Urkel.
the Steve Urkels
Steve
of the
Urkel.
world, right? That's in
Okay.
our generation, right? So nowadays, my kids at school say they're the popular kids. They're smart. They're not taken advantage of as once upon a time they could have been. So that's one example. That's not the other one that came to mind was smokers.
Mm.
So now we're going back, right? Where smoking was deemed as acceptable. Was
Yeah,
deemed as
so
right?
They
It
had
was
it
in
on the
airports,
planes.
yeah,
You had smoking breaks
yeah,
at
in the
work.
restaurants and
Yeah.
things like that. And look at our society today where we actually have restaurants that do not allow smoking. Can't smoke in airports, things like that.
Right.
So what do those people do? They mask, right? They chew gum or they do whatever they have to do. They're still smoking. They just smoke in different
Gotcha.
contexts. So
That's a really good one. I didn't think about
So
smoking.
there's-
That's a great one.
so I think our society evolves, but sometimes it takes hundreds of years to evolve. So we may not see
Right.
in our lifetime. But I think of things we've talked about like furries, like Loki with his physical mask,
Right.
right? Like anybody that does any type of masking today that is deemed as not socially acceptable, but they do it in different ways. One day it could be,
Right.
and maybe one day it should be. So I think of like we are seeing in our society today. So I know we're kind of going in circles, but scientifically, there's kind of an interesting phenomenon I think going on with the OnlyFans sites.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want to get too like controversial or anything, but it's very interesting. So OnlyFans sites, if we were to think 10 years ago,
Okay.
that would have been taboo,
Yes,
right? That would have been
absolutely.
socially unacceptable to do something like that. Now we are praising people for doing OnlyFans sites because it's helping them out of some major crisis. I read not too long ago a teacher that got fired from her teaching job because she has an OnlyFans sites, but yet she's making 5 times the amount of money, but all she's doing is showing cooking like how to cook and how to do this. She's not exposing herself, but yet because it was associated with OnlyFans. it was deemed as-
Interesting.
Yeah, so OnlyFans is like has that connotation of being
right,
exploitative
exploit,
and things
right.
like that. But not everybody's doing it that way. So they're doing it in a form of that context. So is it going to be socially acceptable in the future?
Well, we could have a whole episode, you and I,
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about this one because it's the same way. Is that the sole reason that people are addicted to social media is the instant gratification.
Right.
Somebody is giving me attention, just like you were talking about. What are the 4
What are
functions?
the 4
Can you go
functions?
over those for our audience real quick?
And so I'll share with all of them, and then let's talk about it in terms of masking, right? So the 4 functions are attention, are escape or avoidance, and they kind of go hand in hand. Access, right? Access to
Yes.
something, a physical something, and then sensory or automatic reinforcement. So I think it applies to all behaviors, but let's talk about it in terms of masking. In the context of Loki, what I heard from
Yes.
Loki is that he sought attention. It was a positive attention experience. It wasn't to escape or avoid anything.
Right.
It didn't seem like it was automatically reinforced, even though sometimes he would say it felt good, right? To be funny or whatever. And he liked getting those jokes,
Absolutely.
people laughing, etc. But it wasn't necessarily automatic reinforcement. It was mostly for social attention. So I call that social masking. I call that attention masking, right? So, and that makes sense, right?
Yes.
If you think about anybody that has a masking situation, that they're dressing up a certain way or doing a certain thing.
Relating it to the Comic-Con, the black tie, all comes together.
Yeah, so we call that socially mediated reinforcement or attention maintained behavior, so attention masking. But then there's other ones, right? So I think we've heard stories from our kids that we work with at Puzzle Box that we say, they're masking to avoid some type of social situation, right? So they're dressing like furries with other furries. Why? To escape, avoid people that are not accepting them.
I love this because the other part is on the other side. Moms and dads, have you ever had the kid that doesn't want to brush his teeth, doesn't want to comb his hair, doesn't want to take a bath? The question you should be asking them is, what are they trying to avoid?
Mm-hmm.
Because kids can be mean. So to that situation, it's because nobody will talk to me. Everybody will stay away from me. And I don't have to deal with any of the social awkwardness that may come with it.
Right. So they are wearing the mask, either physically or behaviorally. They're doing whatever they got to do to escape, avoid all of those negative things. And it's sad, really. It's sad. But that's what the function is. So now that we understand the function, we can do something about it.
Yes.
So I call that escape or avoidance masking, right? Now, the other one, socially mediated masking, right? Or sorry, automatic reinforcement masking.
With the masking.
Right?
Because we did social media, so we did the social.
So this is sensory masking.
Okay.
So this is just, I'm putting on the clothes, the mask, whatever, the physicality for myself. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it on my own time. I'm doing it alone in my room. I'm doing whatever I got to do. So I got a great one for you. So,
okay.
So in terms of that one, so I am a closet photographer. I'm not a professional photographer, but one of the things I love to photograph is things at night.
Okay.
Right. So I'll go out in the middle of the night and I'll run around my neighborhood and I'll just take random photos of like this or that or whatever. But I do that on my own time. It's for my reinforcement. I don't share those photos. It's not something I do on a regular basis. I don't post them. I don't sell them. There's no gratification for it other than I get to look at that cool photo.
Right.
Right. And I take photographs of bugs and birds and ducks, in the pond at night.
I love it.
It's cool, but that's what I like. Other people, maybe they want to dress a certain way at night, that they don't get to dress up during the day. And I'm going to leave it at that.
No, I got you. And I think that's a really good part for us to end on for right now for our parents,
Sure.
because we want our parents to understand that we may not understand why they are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, it may be for them independently on their own.
Yep.
It may be something that makes them feel good inside that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Has nothing to do with attention, has nothing to do with avoidance, could be sensory because we don't know. It could be bringing them an internal joy, and that could be a sensory stimulation for them.
Absolutely.
So remember, parents, that your children are independent and they need to be able to express themselves as well. So we want to make sure that we are looking at everything the child's doing. And a form of masking isn't just for the kid, it's also for you as a parent as well. So when we can have these open conversations with our kids, then it allows us to get into the fold so that then we can deep dive into the why.
The why, right.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Purple Couch Podcast. We're going to have more episodes just like this coming up in season 4. Until next time, we'll see you back here at Pam and the Purple Couch Podcast.